Welcome back to the TikTok show. I am your host, Ryan Heelan, and I am so excited about my guest today. She is one of the most kind-hearted and genuine people on social media, with over 560,000 followers on TikTok and over 120,000 followers on Instagram. She hosts the podcast Fun on Weekdays. Please welcome to the show, Jenna Palek. Jenna, thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. You're really hyping me up there. I feel like
I know, I
awesome.
know. No pressure though, but there's a lot to live up to, I think, in this interview. So,
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited.
yeah,
Thank you. This is the
absolutely.
highlight of the day.
Oh, wow, that means a lot. Thank you. Now there's so much to get in with you and everything that you've done and everything that you're doing. But first off, just how are you? I know the holidays can be busy and stressful. So how is life for you right now?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. The past couple of months, I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Just like I have no idea what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah.
And I've been really struggling asking myself the question of like what I want to do with my life. And
Hmm.
especially like online, I think there's a lot of pressure. But the holidays have been really good. Seeing my family was a good little kind of like break and relaxing to kind of get back like with people that like know me super well. I live in Austin and I have so many friends here, but there's
Hmm.
nothing like so I'm feeling good, feeling well rested, and now I'm just trying to like make a plan and get organized for the upcoming year. So
Yeah,
doing okay.
absolutely. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's always good to kind of recharge your batteries around the holidays. But yeah, it's that's the question I've been asking myself since I graduated college. It's like, what am I doing? What am I doing next? So yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat as you and I, and it's a tough place to be at. I don't know, at the age 24, and however, are you 24, 25?
I'm 25. I just turned
Okay.
25 at the end of September.
Oh, well, happy late birthday. And I can,
Thank
there's
you.
just a lot of questions that I think float in our heads, but we'll get to all that later. How you have such an incredible story on how you acquired all these followers on social media, everything you're doing with it. So take us back to the beginning. When did you start on social media?
Okay, so this is back in quarantine time. I was in college 2019. Well, so actually, I downloaded TikTok summer of 2019. I was doing an internship for Sherry Hill, and it was actually less of an internship. It was my second summer there, and they had given me a couple projects. I was on like their sales team, and one of them being a TikTok research project. And so I downloaded TikTok that summer, and I was like so embarrassed at first that I was on it. At the time, it like just kind of switched over from Musically, and none of my friends were on it yet.
Right.
Yeah, and then I go to college. That's my senior year, fall 2019. Some of my friends start getting on it. We start making TikToks when we're like going out, and
Hmm.
really nothing. I didn't have like any followers at the time. I remember I posted one video before I went out one night, and it was of my friend's belly button. Like she was wearing this shirt, and her belly button was poking, like was showing through the buttons. And I put my
Right.
finger in her, and the only followers that I had on TikTok were from that video, and they were like old creepy men.
Oh.
So first video that I ever did anything, but in terms of like my own story, I guess it was spring 2020. COVID had just hit. I was graduating. Everyone was searching for jobs at this point, and I just knew that I wanted to come back to Austin.
Hmm.
And so I found a job at TikTok. It was one of their brand new offices here. I honestly thought that it was like not a real job listing on LinkedIn because it hit every single mark of my like
What you were looking
capabilities, I guess.
for. Right.
Exactly. In Austin. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is a sign from above. So I spend all night. I'm drinking like a double bottle of what's that really cheap wine? Barefoot.
Barefoot, yeah. Oh, I've had my fair share of barefoot.
Oh my God. That was like our go-to during quarantine. You would get the double bottle of barefoot and
Hmm.
they came out with
Yep.
the numbers. So I'm drinking that as I'm doing my resume. I'm making a portfolio. I'm updating everything. And then in the morning, I go to submit my application and the job listing had been taken down. And so I was just like, oh my God, what do I do? I ended up
Right.
picking up my phone late at night and I just made a video about kind of my resume, my job experience. And at the time, like there were people on TikTok, but it wasn't at the point where TikTok was super saturated that you've seen the
Right.
same things over and over again. So at the time, like a job resume on TikTok was a brand new idea. and it wasn't really thought about as a way to network yet.
Yeah, it's very
And
very
so
original.
people, yeah, yeah. So many people are like, how did you come up with that? Like, I was just desperate.
Yeah, you were drinking some barefoot and it just came to you.
Something like, don't worry, there were no grammar mistakes or anything. Yeah, and so I remember the next morning I had woken up and I had like 10K followers and I was freaking out. The video had about like 150,000 views, I think, at that point, and it was doing really, really well. Over time, it just kept accumulating more and more views. People were tagging TikTok, and then 2 days
Hmm.
later, got a call, got an interview, and I ended up getting the job at TikTok. I am
Wow.
still 100% positive though that I was a personality hire because there's no way in hell that they hired me with advertising background because I had none.
Right. Well, congratulations. Hey, it worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
Yeah, for sure. So after that story, I ended up getting the job. I moved to Austin. I was single at the time. I didn't know anyone, and it was also mid-COVID. So
Hmm.
I think just taking people along that journey with me, I've always been like very open about sharing my life. I think that's why people started following me. And then, yeah, over time, you know how people are talking about eras right now?
Yes, yes. I see that trend on TikTok all the time.
Yeah, I would say over the past 2 years, I've had a couple eras. So
Right.
people followed me for the TikTok resume era. And then there was an era when I was like super into The Bachelor. I always said if I was still single when I was 23, then I would try and be on The Bachelor. Worked out in my favor because now I'm with Connor, my boyfriend. But I had that era that people followed me from, and then I don't know, I moved into an apartment. I had a decorating era. So I would say over time, some people know me for different things, but overall, I just kind of overshare my life online.
Right.
That's pretty much what.
That's awesome. And through your eras, I think one thing that has been so unique to you is you've just been authentically yourself. Like, do you think that's hard to like get to a point where you can do that in your life, let alone on social media? Was that difficult to kind of let people see that side of you?
I would say at the very beginning, when I was still in college, like, yes, absolutely. When I was still in my hometown, yes, because
Hmm.
I just didn't want to make videos that people would watch and then like make fun of me. And I think that is what everyone's hesitation is with social media, is just the fear that people you know in your real life are going to see your videos. And
Yeah.
so when I moved to Austin, it was kind of like I was just going through life alone almost. And the internet was kind of like a journal, like a diary,
Hmm.
happened to be public. And the way that I got comfortable with it was just telling myself that no one I know, no one from my family, none of my friends are watching my videos. And
Right.
told myself that, and I started to believe it. Then I was like, okay, I don't really care to tell this story, you know?
Hmm.
And I think once you start becoming more and more yourself online, and people started following me for that versus like specific content, it kind of gave me the confidence to just like lean into my personality more, because I realized like it doesn't really matter what I'm posting as long as it's true to me and as long as I have fun doing it and I think it's funny. And so, yeah, I would say now I do struggle with it a little bit more because I've grown a bit, and people
Hmm.
have opinions about you, and it's hard to not listen to that. I've always been someone that's always
Yeah,
cared about.
absolutely.
I want everyone to like me, and I've realized that's not a reality. And
Yeah.
sometimes I do think it is a little bit hard. Um, but the most fun that you have on TikTok is just literally being yourself, and like got to get out of that headspace that people are going to judge you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And that, it can be tough to get there, but once you do get there, it feels like a weight is like lifted off your shoulders because there is no pressure. There's no pressure to have to be anything for one group of people. You can just be authentically yourself, and then it like comes so naturally. I think we forget sometimes how much we were made to just be ourselves. So yeah, I love that 100%. Now, was it hard leaving, working at TikTok to just being an influencer full time and trying to do your own thing? Like, was that a hard decision to get to a headspace where you felt confident enough in you and your ability to leave the 9 to 5?
Yeah, so honestly, leaving my job at TikTok was something that I thought about for months, like
Hmm.
months and months. I would say probably like 7 months in. I was working in advertising, and truthfully, I had no background in advertising, had no background in anything that I was doing with my job. And it's not that I didn't enjoy like the job itself. I just felt like I wasn't being utilized in a way that I was proud of my work, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
I would have loved to stay at TikTok and move to a different department, but there were no opportunities for me. And that was something that I had talked about before was, could I move into marketing? Could I do something with partnerships? Could I do something with events? And there were
Hmm.
no opportunities to move around. So before social media really blew up for me and I was starting to make like decent income from brand deals, I had already considered leaving TikTok. But COVID was still like affecting jobs and the
Right.
job market. So there weren't a ton of things available. And this was like beginning of last year. And so I remember I would call my mom, I would be crying. I literally hated my job. And
Hmm.
I just felt so like creatively unfulfilled. I felt like what I was doing all day, every day wasn't really like adding anything valuable to my life. And I think that's perfectly okay now that I'm away from it. I realize that like your job doesn't need to be the best thing in the world. If it's
Right.
something that like gives stability and it's a steady income for you, then that can be great. Like if that's what you need, then that's great. But for me, I needed something that was like a creative outlet and I felt some type of purpose. And so after months of kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, social media, whenever people would ask me if I would ever quit to do social media full time, I was like, no, I don't believe in
Yeah.
that. I always having different streams of revenue, you know. And then it got to a point where I was like, wait, I could just do social media while I figure out what my next step is. And so when I
Hmm.
quit my job, it was never an idea that I was going to do social media full time for the next 5 years. I've always kind of looked at it as like a stepping stone so I can figure out exactly what I do want to do. Because
Right.
as much as I'm online, like I'm trying to create something that is a little bit has a little bit more longevity to it,
Right.
because it does burn out, you know, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, and like, you don't know how long social media is going to be around. So
For sure.
just take advantage of like building a community now so that if TikTok were deleted tomorrow, I know that I have people in my corner that will follow me, you know, into whatever the next project is that I do.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. And I think when you take those steps, like they can be scary. And I think in our minds, we just kind of have this inevitable doubt that we allow to creep in. So, how did you deal with some of that self-doubt? Was it people around you? Was it the community that you had built? How did you deal with some of those, just those voices in your head that can kind of try to persuade you against doing what you truly want to do?
Yeah, so I think I knew in my gut that I needed to quit my job. And honestly, like this might sound cliche, but my boyfriend Connor was like the number one person that was always in my corner. Like I would tell my parents that I was having these thoughts, and my dad would come back and say, "Oh, well, like you know what, you should have the stability. Like you're not going to have insurance, you're not going to have healthcare, you're
Hmm.
not going to have all these things. You really need to think this through." And everyone in my life was kind of telling me like the cons, which of course are the realities of
Right.
if I were to jump. But I think Connor was the constant in my life that was always telling me, like, you have so much potential. And like, if you don't quit, you're always going to wonder what if, and I will be there to support you. And he's just been like so great. And he has a business of his own. So I think being together, he's really
Hmm.
inspired me and like made me feel safe that even if, you know, something were to not work out, then at least I tried. And so
Yeah.
I specifically him, but also our mutual friend Mike, who's his business partner. They've just been both like really great influences in my life, especially here in Austin. And yeah, I don't think that I would have made that decision had I not met them and had I not been inspired by them.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have people like that in your life, even the ones who have kind of done the jump before you that can give you the advice. And people will always tell me like it's not as scary when you do it as you are making it up to be in your head. Like there are going to be challenges, sure. There's going to be things that will scare you, but you kind of just have this ability to figure it out along the way and you take everything as it comes and deal with it as it comes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges, and I would say my biggest challenge is just trying to figure out a schedule because
Hmm.
when you have anyone above you that's like holding you accountable and telling you what to do every day, and you're just coming up with things to do on your own, like I'm not gonna lie, there's been a lot of times where I've totally slacked off. I haven't fallen through with commitments that I've made to myself, and
Right.
One of my friends said this a couple weeks ago, and she said that building confidence is keeping commitments that you make to yourself. So if you
Hmm.
think about telling your friend that you're going to go on a walk and then you cancel on your friend over time, if you keep canceling, they're not going to trust you. They're just going to think that you're flaky. And so if
Right.
you put that to yourself and you say, "Oh, I'm going to go work out at 6 a.m. tomorrow," or "Oh, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work on this project tomorrow," and then just keep pushing it back or you don't do it, over time, like you're not going to have any confidence in yourself that you're going to do the things that you say you're going to do. And so lately, these past couple of months, that's been the major thing that I've been working towards, especially being self-employed, is like you have to have self-discipline. And
Hmm.
it's definitely opened my eyes to my lack of self-discipline.
Right. Now, I love your podcast and I want to talk about it for a second because I think, I have a ton of people that have told me how much they love it. My sister, all her friends, people that really do like listening to it. What has the podcast been for you? Has it been a space where you can just be more free? Has it been a space where you can meet new people you never thought you'd meet? Like, what has been all of the good that's come from doing that?
Yeah. So when I think about the podcast, it's so interesting because I feel like it has also had its own eras. When I
Hmm.
started, it was such an outlet for me. Aside from my 9 to 5, it was a place that I felt like I could kind of share who I was and what I wanted to do with my life in a way. And I could also relate to these other people who felt similar. They felt like in a box of what their job was, and you weren't really sure like how to get out of it. Now, a couple weeks into the podcast, I ended up making the jump and quitting my job. And I think that it had shifted my view of what the podcast then was. I started thinking
Hmm.
about it more as a way to build community and a way to just build a brand outside of, your typical means of social media, TikTok and Instagram. And so from there, I started thinking of ways that I could bring the community together and actually bring valuable experiences to the people that support and listen to me daily. Because if they didn't, like, I would have never been able
Yeah.
to make it up to begin with.
Right.
And so that's really important, is showing your gratitude. And at the beginning of this past year, I started planning an entire summer of doing events in different
Hmm.
cities. So the whole purpose was, people all the time will say, "I'm so lost post grad. Like, I don't know how to make friends. I don't know what to do.
Right.
I don't know what to do in life." And what I always say is like, how are you spending your weekdays? Because I think that it shows a lot about your lifestyle and like your drive, and just a lot of who you are is based on who you are outside of work. So what are
For
you doing
sure.
outside of 5? And I noticed a pattern in myself that I would just like stay in all the time, and I wanted to change that. And I realized that if I invested time in myself outside of my job, that was how I would grow. That was how I would make new friendships, and I would be able to eventually like create new opportunities.
Right.
So I started the events, and that was a way for people to meet in person, and I got to meet people, and it was so great. And I loved doing it. Over a few months of doing that, I think that I got really caught up in trying to impress myself and others.
Hmm.
You leave an event, you're like, "Oh, I could have done this bigger and better. There could have been more
Oh yeah.
decoration, a better
Right.
photo." And over time, I realized that I got a little removed from what my entire intention was. So
Hmm.
after my anniversary event, after a year of fun on weekdays, it was my anniversary in August, I kind of took a step away from events and I did some self-reflecting of like,
Right.
what is the message that I want to share with people? And I think part of part of the issue for me, not the issue, but part of the struggle or challenge for me is that I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And so when I sit down behind a podcast mic every week and I'm giving advice, oftentimes that I can't even take myself.
Hmm.
I really think that like my podcast is in a form like a sense of therapy for myself. I
Yeah.
almost give advice to other people that I know that I need to hear. And so the podcast now is a way for me to just kind of share what I'm going through that I know so many other people are struggling with as well. And then I have guests on every other week or however often it is to kind of share their experience, whether it's something with their job, something with a friend, a relationship, or just a funny story, something inspiring. And yeah, I guess just kind of being a place where people know that it's okay to not have your life figured out yet, but also a place where like people know that you have to have a balance between work and life and fun.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I was going to ask you, I think, I heard a quote that said, life is all about the little moments. Like all the big moments that happen in your life are like once in like well, you have one big moment a year, and the rest of your life is all the little moments. So I love the you kind of captured the ability to show the importance of that to all kinds of different people. Now, is it hard for you to separate work and life now that you don't have a 9 to 5, now that your job is kind of, you are your boss and you can do things, like at 5 o'clock, people know it's time to go home when they work from 9 to 5. But now you kind of create your own schedule and create all of your own projects and stuff like that. So is it hard for you to separate, okay, let's leave work here and go out with friends and have fun? Has that been a challenge?
Yes, definitely. Especially because my boyfriend also is in the same boat where like we're
Right.
not necessarily working traditional hours. But I mean, the fact that most of my friends do work a 9 to 5 has helped me in the fact that like I'm not gonna go meet up with them for lunch during the day. They are on
Hmm.
call. I think I like to work better at night personally, which is kind of something that I'm
Yeah.
trying to shift, start my days earlier. But I would say when I was doing the events, it wasn't as hard because I was working with an event planner and we would go into my office every day. We would have
Hmm.
specific things to work on. So when I stopped doing the events just for a couple of months, it also shed light on like I don't have a daily structure. And I think for me, the lack of routine makes it really hard in my personal life as well. So I've always struggled with that kind of balance. Well,
Yeah.
actually, I should say I did that balance when I had my 9 to 5 because I didn't like what I was doing. So when I shut the computer at 5 o'clock, I was like, cool, my managers aren't on, my boss
Right.
isn't watching me.
It's
And
kind of it's a built-in structure.
right. And
Yeah.
everybody's like the hustle culture. You know how everybody's
Yeah.
like, oh, I have time. And it's kind of a flex if you're like working
Hmm.
super hard. I think ever since COVID, people started realizing like, we don't need to do that. We're going to make the same amount of money regardless. So
Exactly.
a lot
Yeah.
of people know exactly what they need to do and they're still going to make that money. But when you are self-employed, it's a little bit different. And so I don't know, every day looks different. But
Yeah.
yeah, the schedule, I'm struggling really hard with the schedule
Yeah.
and the balance. Sure.
Well, like I said, you will get there. And I think you're kind of figuring out it's just something you learn along the way. Like your schedule is going to look different this week than it will next week. And that's just, I don't know, that's just the way that life kind of happens for a lot of people. Now, I think inspiration is so big, not only in like content creating online, but just in life. So you talked a lot about your boyfriend, and I'm sure he's been a huge inspiration. But who else in your life has inspired you to be the woman that you are, the person that you are, inspired you to create online? Who has kind of been the people you've looked up to growing up?
So it's funny because I literally never followed influencers. Like
Right.
one, ironically, but I do think that the scope of influencers has changed entirely with TikTok. And so in college, like I didn't really know anything. I didn't really care. But I would say just overall, like in general, my dad 100% like he will
Hmm.
make videos. You can find him on TikTok and his bio says fun on weekdays. Like he is the embodiment of he's worked from home for the past like 30 some years and
Wow.
I am every single day doing something different and he is just like I don't know, he's like the life of the party. Everyone in town
Hmm.
knows him. He's a small town. He's just always keeping himself busy. And so I think growing up around someone who's always made every situation fun or has always had the ability to like crack a joke in a time
Yeah.
where everyone's stressed out and annoyed of each other has been a huge inspiration. My mom is a teacher, and so she's obviously a huge inspiration to me because I see how much she cares for the people around her. And she's very, very creative and artistic. And I think I've found some of those qualities from her.
Yeah.
My sister, Sydney is occupational therapist, so she's a caretaker, and her patience for people is absolutely out of this world. And so about myself as like a content creator full time and I think about what she's doing daily, all day, every day, like my struggles are not even near what she
Right.
goes through and what she's dealing with her patients. And so when I think about like my job, oftentimes I kind of downplay my job because it doesn't
Hmm.
feel like one in comparison to like what my family does. And
Right.
then lastly, my sister Erin, she's definitely my best friend, and she actually lost her best friend in a car accident. think it's been 2 years now, which is so crazy. And
Wow.
I think when she lost her best friend, and that was her weekday friend that she would hang out with every single
Hmm.
day, always that go-to person, it really made me reflect on my life as well and just like my relationships with everyone. And so she was a huge inspiration when I was coming up with like the idea of fun on weekdays and just the overall change of mindset about life. But
Right.
my family.
I love that it's your family. Not only, creators can be great, but when it's more of a personal inspiration where you can go to them with questions and ideas. And I love that just by living their lives, like your mom and your dad in their jobs, you were inspired. Like times where they probably didn't think they were being an inspiration. You looked at them and it changed your perspective. It shifted everything and it was an inspiration for you. So now I think you are absolutely in a position where people look at you and say, I want to do something similar to what she does. So do you have any advice for people who are in the same stage of life or watching you and saying, I want to do something like that? What would you say is one of the biggest things you wish you knew 5 years ago?
So there's a creator that I love, Robin Del Monte. I think that's how
Hmm.
I say it. But she's known as Girl Boss Town. And one of the things she always says is whenever somebody says that they want to do social media or be an influencer, her question is why? Like, what's your why? And I
Hmm.
think when she said that, it really resonated with me because I think a lot of people now they want to be on social media because there's so many like cool opportunities, right? And I think it's kind of like what everyone in this generation is aspiring to do. But I think understanding why you want to do it, like, is
Right.
it because you want free stuff, because you want to make money? Is it because you want to network? Or is it because you want to build something greater beyond this? And you view social media as a stepping stone for that. And so
Hmm.
I think figuring out your why is really, really important. And also staying true to like who you are, no matter how hard it is. I struggle with this so much. You know, you get
Right.
opinions all the time about how you look, your hair, your decorations, whatever the hell it is.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. And it's really easy to be persuaded. So I think if you just stick to your gut and you
Yeah.
are who you are, keep in mind, like tell yourself no one you know is going to watch your videos. I think that is my best advice for being like your truest self. And over time, your people will eventually find you. People say like find
Yeah.
your niche or and I just feel like if you truly are yourself, you don't really need a niche because people will care about you as a person
For
and they'll
sure.
care about whatever you have to show or whatever you have to say.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for being here. I am genuinely so excited to see what comes next for you. Keep inspiring people, keep being you. We need more people like you in this world. Guys, make sure you go follow Jenna on all her social medias, listen to her podcast. They'll be linked below. You won't regret it. And make sure you follow me for more great interviews.